Hello, all my friends, and welcome back to the Simply Lili podcast. I'm Lili, and today's episode is very dear and personal to me, and it's for parents and caregivers walking the challenging path of caring for a sick child. I wanted to create this episode because I had a daughter that was diagnosed with leukemia ALL at the age of 19 back in 2023. And I want to tell you something. Our lives changed overnight. Through sleepless nights, treatments, and balancing work, I learned something powerful, that there is hope, God is with us, even in our hardest moments. I know what it feels like to watch your child face a diagnosis that changes everything. For me, like I said, it was the leukemia, specifically the ALL. When my daughter was just entering her prime in college and everything that was just beginning to flourish for her. And me thinking I was empty nest, and it just literally changed overnight. And just suddenly like that, life as I knew it stopped. But through the sleepless nights, the prayers, the hospital visits, the balancing of a full-time job, I learned something very powerful. There is hope, even in the darkest moments. If you're in the midst of a similar journey, I want you to know something, that you're not alone. God sees you, and while the road may be hard, it's also full of lessons, strength, and moments of grace. Let's get started. Like I was saying, let's talk about the diagnosis and the early days. When my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, it was one of those things where everything was fine. She comes home and voila, I don't feel good. I have this little pain, always tired. Long story short, what happened? I took her to the doctor. When she ended up developing these lymph nodes on her neck, she had a bone marrow biopsy, and it came back that she had cancer. It was the leukemia ALL, which is an acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's actually an aggressive cancer. It's one of the most aggressive leukemias. It's a cancer of the blood and the bone marrow that primarily affects white blood cells. So while treatments have advanced, the journey is physically, emotionally, mentally challenging for both parents and caregivers. I want to tell you something. I felt a mixture of fear, shock, but yet at the same time, I was determined that, you know what? I got to move, Lil. You got to start thinking, what are we going to do here? This is not going to ruin life. And we're just going to start having to think, where are we going with this? Because if there's one thing about me, I'm not a quitter. And God has gotten me through bigger storms. Everything I thought I knew about life and parenting was suddenly turned upside down. And I'm going to tell you something. It felt like a bad dream. I had to step into the role of a caregiver, literally overnight, to a teenager who was almost a full adult. And what does that mean? Right off the bat, that meant loyalty. Loyalty to my child and to the disease. It meant being present even when my body is exhausted. It meant managing medications, treatments, and appointments while trying to keep a job and life going. It's overwhelming. It's emotional. And I'll tell you something. It was lonely at times. But it's also a journey, so I'm going to be very frank with you, that shows you the depth of love that you have for your child and the power of faith. I spent hours on my knees praying, a lot of crying, and sometimes whispering words of hope into the night, like, Lord, please, just, what should I do? What do you want? Just talk to me. And every single moment mattered. Each prayer, each hug, each act of care made a difference. I knew that I wasn't alone, and I knew my faith was strong. I also believed that when I was in the midst of praying, I came across a reading, a scripture, and it was Psalm 34:18 that literally calmed me. It said, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's all I needed to read. And I read it over and over again, and I wrote it down and I read it. So that scripture was very comforting to me. Let me start talking about the daily grind that you start going through and that I went through on a regular. One thing I could definitely tell you, as much of a diva as I could be and can be vain sometimes, being a caregiver is not glamorous. It's getting up in the middle of the night to check on your child. It's pacing the hospital halls for hours, waiting for results, waiting for answers, not eating. And it keeps your heart strong, believe it or not, when you feel weak. For me, balancing a full-time job while being there for my daughter was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had to learn how to prioritize, how to ask for help, and to be honest about my limits. Because I'm going to tell you something. The line of work that I do, I'm in social services. I'm a social worker. And I am always the one helping people and coming up with plans and putting things together. And I'll tell you one thing. There's nothing I want to say more than I want every caregiver to hear. It's okay to admit you're tired. It's okay to lean on family, friends, or a community because we cannot do it all alone. In the beginning, I was just so overwhelmed, and it's just like that C word is something where you just don't know how to accept it or don't know what to do with it. This was all so new to me because although we can't do it alone, we have to come to terms with ourselves that, okay, you have to stand still. What am I going to do here? That's why I say it takes a village, because sometimes just because they are not there physically, the people around you are the hands and feet of God, supporting your child, and believe it or not, supporting you as well. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 10, I'm going to tell you something. I always butcher up that book, but I'm going to tell you something. This is deep. It says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other one up. That's deep. So that means you're not alone. And if you have a village, if one person's not there for you, there's going to be someone else. One thing that I really had to take myself and just focus on is that I needed to come to terms with faith, my faith, and I had to really get into prayer because at this time, I needed prayer. I needed prayer from everyone. I relied on faith and prayer. And let me tell you something, faith became my anchor. There were nights when I tell you that I cried out to God, asking for strength, asking for healing, asking for peace. And sometimes I felt like my prayers were like echoes in the dark. I sometimes just felt so disconnected. But here's what I've learned. God answers are not always instant. And sometimes the miracles are small and we have quiet victories rather than dramatic ones. Things were happening and I just had to stand still. And I'm going to say it again. There's times we just have to stand still and let things happen. So through all this, I learned that prayer doesn't just change circumstances, it changes us. It gives us patience, it gives us courage, and it gives us a stronger perspective. And while we place our hope in God, we also recognize that our children are strong beyond measure. They endure, they fight, they inspire us in ways we never imagined. I seen strength from my child that I expected for this child to be just a basket case. This has never happened to anyone in my family. We have never experienced anything like this with a child. But there was something about her because she has already been raised in the church and she was into scripture and she already knew what faith was. And I could just see it glowing through her. She was very calm. And that, I just gave her so much praise for that because then that inspired me and it also gave me the will to continue to be stronger. So this is some encouragement that I have for caregivers. To the parents and caregivers that are listening, believe it or not, you are stronger than you know. There will be moments of exhaustion, doubt, and fear, but there will always be moments of incredible love, laughter, and grace. Let me tell you the 5 things that I ended up putting together within my balance that actually worked for me. I had to, number 1, you have to take care of yourself. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Even small amounts of rest matter. And yes, I did mention earlier that there was times I didn't eat, but you also need to nourish yourself. Number 2, ask for help. I didn't want to bother anybody at first, and I didn't want to answer questions. Everybody was asking, what's going on, and you get those texts and you get the phone calls. I didn't want to keep answering the same thing over and over again. So I would make group texts, and that way everyone got the same information. But don't be afraid to reach out to family, to friends, or local support groups. At my church at Resurrected Life, I belong to an organization. It's called Women on the Move. And shout out to these women who had me and Kalia in prayer all the time. And I would get these different texts and I would get the phone calls, but it wasn't nothing out of pity. It was, hey, we got you. We're here. You're in prayer. And there was times where, I'm going to tell you something, I felt where not only did I feel alone, I couldn't put my guard down and let my child see me suffering, because I was suffering internally. But I knew that there was something about this feeling that I used to get up on me, and I used to know that I know people are praying for me because I felt it in my soul. Now, number 3, you have to pray and you have to have faith. Faith is gonna be your anchor. Even a simple prayer can give you clarity and peace. I'm gonna leave that right there because I can't say it any different. I can't say it any better. Number 4, celebrate the small victories. For every treatment, everything that went well, or just her being okay or him being okay, and it was a good day today, for every smile or every peaceful night is worth noticing. And my 5th one, trust your child's strength. Sometimes they teach us resilience we didn't even know we had. My child is my hero. I have learned so much from this experience. It has made me a different person in so many different ways, but a better person. In Philippians 4, verse 13, it says, and I love this, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. So let me come back full circle. I'm looking back at this now, and I see the full circle of this journey. There were nights I thought I couldn't continue, and yet here we are. I'm stronger, wiser, and full of hope. I am beyond happy to share with y'all that my daughter is now in a deep remission after the Chimera CAR T cell therapy, which was administered to her through the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. A super shout out to CHOP. These people were amazing. And I can't express how kind and how great they were. They were a 10 out of 10. Remember, being a caregiver teaches you that hope is real. Prayer is powerful. I'm going to tell you again. Prayer is powerful. And that love truly does conquer fear. God walks with us through it all. And I learned that. I learned that because I believed it, because I gave all of me into believing, and I just let go and let God. And I'm going to be totally honest with y'all. During this journey from 2023 until now, I can't ever say that I was scared that this isn't going to happen right, or I was actually scared of something terminally being bad. I can't say that. So it's most importantly that there is always something that you have to bear in mind, and that is that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. When God walks through us with it all, even in the moments of uncertainty, we were informed of the diagnosis. My child said, "Mom, it's 2023. There's a lot of treatment. It's going to be okay." When I heard her say that, I was still in awe just hearing what the doctor has said of the diagnosis. But there was a glow around her that she said, "Mom, it's going to be okay." And let me tell you something. That calmed me down. That brought me to reality. Let me tell you something. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, it says, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." Period. I want to take this time to all of you out there listening. If you're walking this path, know that your love matters, your prayers matter, and your presence matters. Know that you're not alone. And listen, there is hope. Keep your faith. Lean on your village. I'm going to tell you something. You need to trust in God's plan. Looking back, I see the full circle. Like I said, those sleepless nights, those hospital halls taught me strength, patience, and hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and God does walk with us through it all. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." There we go. There's nothing to be afraid of. I want to thank you for listening to the Simply Lili podcast today. This really, really did mean a lot to me. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need encouragement today, who might be silently going through the struggles of being a caregiver. And remember, you are stronger than you think, and your love is making a difference. Remember to share and to follow. And until the next one, God bless you, and you got this.